So then
just one of them?
I haven't seen any of them even after.
So we can't even talk about Alien versus Aliens?
I mean,
like, what is this conversation going to be? Oh my God.
But, hello and welcome to the 27 people, 27 movies. Joining us today is wonderful English teacher, Miss Duffy.
Hi.
All right. Well, what do we think about it? So one of the great things about this movie is outstanding director, outstanding actress.
It's great. Everything about, not everything about Alien is great. Alien is too long. That would be like,
really?
Yes. You don't feel like it's too long?
I mean, I just feel like I'm so burnt or jaded on like 3-hour movies now that I'm like, oh, hour 58 or whatever the fuck, piece of cake. I can definitely do that. What would you have cut out of it? You think there's like fat that can be trimmed?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like especially going to the ship, and I get like that they're trying to have like the tension when they're first going to encounter like the alien. I just feel like it's a little slow.
Yeah, like, when they visit that ship, just the size and the scope of everything is awesome.
Yeah.
And I think this movie's great with like the use of silence, like just, which also builds like a fear. Mm-hmm. So much of like, this is like, horror movies don't scare me. Like, it needs to be like real things, not that like being up in space and finding alien, but like just like the remoteness of it, yes. The silence of it. Even, you know what I noticed a lot in this? The sweat. Just like the whether it's setting the scene of like just maybe how warm or muggy it is on the ship, or just the
humidity
sweat.
There, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And sweating in the actual suits. I swear that there's also like a heartbeat that's like unrelayed in some scenes to kind of get like the tension of like their experiences. Yeah,
such a great collection of characters too. Like even love like Brett and Parker, just as kind of like salvage guys who want their extra share of the money, and just really great cast, and then just all the individual characters so good. Obviously being topped by Ridley, but so many of them it's great performances, and just each character is so important to the whole ensemble.
Yes, I agree.
Just that minute, going back to the fear as I look at my notes, when they realize that they've woken up too early, and that like just that they're not home yet, and like, why aren't we home?
I love that the series of like dissolves and like how they're like slowly waking out of their hypersleep. I just think that's so beautifully filmed. And again, like here it's like so calm versus again the chaos that we're gonna have later. So it's always these contrasts.
You mentioned the practical effects. I think the practical effects in this movie are great. Just everything from like when they bring when they're just examining the eggs or the different things, just like it all looks so real.
Because it was real. Yeah, like they use actual like organs. They use
did they really?
To make the actual parts of the face hugger. So some of it was like actual like pieces of like animals and things that they chucked in there.
What do you think about the actual alien? The alien itself.
I think that it's like, so if you want to go into a little bit of like the feminist aspect of it, like there's a whole lot going on from the face hugger to like the xenomorph itself. One thing like that I like about the xenomorph is that it's barely on screen, and I think it's because actually the costume doesn't look that great. So there's parts where we see like the giant hands come out, and it really is like the same thing that you would see like in a 50s kind of not so great horror movie, except it's covered in like goop. But I think that like not seeing it is actually really effective.
It's like the Jaws thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Like not seeing the
and Rosemary's Baby, the lack of it, and like when is it going to come? And like the jump scares, obviously, they always still work on me, even though I've seen Alien probably at least a dozen times. Like I will still scream, and I know it's coming, and it's because of again the design of it, like H.R. Giger, like that everything looks like tubes, on the alien's body, that is able to kind of fit in with like all of the tubes and like all the ductwork on the ship, and like you just never know where it's gonna be.
I mean, just like that scene where it's on the ship with Ridley at the end, and just like it fits like perfectly where it is, and you think she's safe, and then it's still there, and that was excellent.
So I've actually, I have taught this movie here before, like a long, long time ago. So I'm just going to read something I had in my original like prep packet. I think I might have gotten it from like the British Film Institute book, but I can't remember, and I don't know why I didn't cite where it came from. But the facehugger method of reproduction via implantation was deliberately intended to invoke images of male rape and impregnation. Wow. So both writers were adamant that the facehugger victim be a man. Firstly, because they wanted to avoid the horror cliche of women being depicted as the easy first target. Yeah. Secondly, because they felt that making a female the the casualty of a symbolic rape felt inappropriate, and thirdly, to make the male viewers feel more uncomfortable with this reversal of genre conventions. And you see that too, like in the mess hall with like, I mean, it is like giving birth, like, and it's like so violent.
Yeah.
And like that part of it is just like very interesting to me, those choices.
Yeah, I see that's like what I mentioned before. I wouldn't have thought of that as that type of, rape connection.
Yeah.
That, and then even just the way it strangles him too.
Absolutely.
It's not just smothering him, but also like killing him if you attempt to take it off.
There's no way to escape it.
And then just the thing that I read about this was I saw an article that questioned if it was a feminist movie. Not that it wasn't, but I think the argument for it was like, if nothing else, it sets this standard of like what female characters can be going forward, so on and so forth. But then one of the things that I noticed before even reading that article is that like you have Ridley and you have Lambert. Yeah. And that Lambert is just like shrieking and she's like
definitely a damsel in distress.
Yeah, and then you have Ridley who's just so powerful and so in charge, up to the point where like people, they won't listen to her. She knows right away. She does want to let Kane back on the ship.
Yeah, she's enforcing the quarantine. She's very like being very logical, rational, saying like, we're not going to get overwhelmed by all of these emotions. He does not belong back on here. It's going to be dangerous to all of us.
Yeah, and she's overruled on, when they're searching for the alien and who should do what.
Yeah.
And it finally takes until Dallas being killed that she finally fully takes charge of everything. But I noticed you had, when I described her as powerful or strong, no?
Well, no, she is. But like this, I was just thinking about how like we can't have the full conversation if you haven't seen Aliens, because like she has a journey like throughout all of the movies, honestly. And she becomes more of a leader in some of the other movies. The other movies, like the next movie, Aliens, I think is actually less feminist than Alien because it really reinforces the notion of like Ripley as a mother, and she's like caring for Newt in Aliens, and that she lost her daughter, and it was like all about like her fighting for things was really based in just being a mother, whereas here there's none of that. I mean, she's like nurturing towards the cat and she saves the cat, but she's not really thought of like as maternal in any way in this movie. And I feel like, no, I would argue that it is feminist. I understand the critiques, like there's critiques if you look at like The Final Girl. So like a lot of people connect this movie to like Halloween and this, the idea of like slasher movies, which also all of them have like these like phallic symbols, and the alien, obviously like the mouth coming out, all of that is very like phallic. But I think that she is like a full person in this movie. I think she's got a mix of all the traits. Like there's parts where she is emotional. She's like very clearly in control in the end, making like very good choices. I think it is mostly feminist. I do, but there's also the complications of the ship itself, that the ship itself is called Mother. And
I was going to ask about that. Is there meaning behind that? Is it just so teach me?
I think that there's so much meaning behind it. So there's Mother, and then she says bitch, right?
Yeah.
When it doesn't stop the countdown. So I feel like this is something we see in a lot of media. We kind of like, we love moms. We also hate moms a lot because we think of moms as being sort of controlling. And like the ship has all the power over them. Like it's like waking them up from it. It's making them go and get this signal and go or investigate the signal. It's like not the corporation also doesn't care about them, but the ship doesn't care about them. Like they are not the priority for the ship.
It's so crazy when they have that on the screen.
Yeah.
Too, like everything else.
I feel like calling it Mother. I mean, I think it is. Like, you could definitely say that there's some sexism there, and just, like, the amount of control that the ship is exerting, and, like, why are you gendering that, right?
Yeah.
And, like, what are the qualities that thing is expressing that you're gonna call it, like, Mother? And how is it being used, if you're looking at that? And then it's kind of similar. There's another Mother also in Aliens. Like, instead of just having the male alien, like, run around, it's, like, in the sequel, there is... like a female one that's like just giving birth to all these things, and there's more of like calling her a bitch too. Oh yeah, the end. So the end, I mean, is like obviously total objectification. That would be, I mean, horror movies and just like how, and sci-fi especially, is like really complicated in how they portray women. It's like very, very rare do you have like a female who's going to be the hero of the film. Like when they are cast, often it'll be like the evil female like seductress
Yeah.
in sci-fi or like video games that use these same kinds of like tropes. So there's like this like danger that's present in women's sexuality often in these sci-fi movies. Here we don't have that, but we still have that objectification. So we have like at the end, like why is she fighting in her underwear?
So I was gonna ask about that. That's why I didn't get into my notes. Like for this like kind of strong female character to then just end up in like the smallest underwear in the history
very,
of
very
underwear.
tiny.
Like it seemed like an odd.
So I mean, in a way it works because like obviously you're most vulnerable when you're naked, and so like it adds to the tension. Like, oh god, like she doesn't have anything that's gonna like really separate her from the alien until she gets into the suit. But I think it is just a chance to be like, hey, yeah, this is a lady all along. Let's like look at her body.
Yeah, let's not forget about that.
So it's like actually seeing her female form towards the end.
So no matter how far you come along, it'll always get pulled back to the objectification.
Yeah, well, yeah, that doesn't go anywhere ever.
That's just permanent. That's written in permanent marker.
Sure. So I think that I still think that she's like a feminist character, but it's complicated.
And I mean, even though I haven't seen the other ones, like my understanding of them just from like kind of knowing them is that like she kind of becomes more badass in terms of like, she's a little more, I guess stronger. I don't know if that's where she doesn't shave her head
in the third one because they have lice.
Oh, okay. So that's not even like a badass
prison
thing.
colony.
It's just like we have lice.
And then she's the only woman in like this all male colony.
And you kind of made it sound like is the second one not as much with the feminist touch? Is it by when you get to the third one and the fourth one? Is it?
She's still the one who's saving everyone every time.
Yeah.
Like she's always like the main character. I just feel like there's such an emphasis on motherhood in the second one, like that we don't have here, and just because that is something that we often prioritize in society, like we often seem to value women more as mothers than as like people. That to me is like a knock against that movie as far as like the feminist sort of character.
I guess it is just another way to approach women, in terms of examining that part of her as opposed to, the worker or the leader. Because she is a leader. That's the thing. Like, she's like third in charge of the ship, which is why like she gets so mad when Ash kind of overrules her to let Kane back on. Well, thank you, Ms. Duffy. I appreciate you coming on. And we will see everyone next time on the 27th. Take care.